Hey, what is up, everyone? So, welcome back to the Lewis Pike Show. Again, I'm doing a dual recording here on my podcast, and I'm also broadcasting this video on my YouTube channel as well. So, today we're going to talk about something that I've been seeing a lot of people struggle with as far as their debt. So, we're going to talk about 7 steps to get started with debt repayment. So, I've been running a promotion to get people into my list, onto my database, just to figure out more what people are going through with paying off their debt. I'll also, if you stick around to the end of the video, end of the episode, I will give you a link to a download of everything I'm going to talk about today. Just it's in a nice PDF ebook format where you can just go through it step by step. So what I've been finding out is a lot of people are wanting to get out of debt, but what I'm finding out is a lot of people don't have a plan. And, I've been thinking it's simple. Everyone has a budget, everyone's tracking their money, but they're not. And I'm going to really stress, you have to be tracking your information. If you aren't tracking your money, you don't know where your money's going, then you will not succeed in paying off debt. You got to have a clear picture of where your money's going. And I get it, paying off debt can be scary. It can be intimidating. You can feel defeated. It's kind of hard to kind of see the end goal, especially when you're dealing with all of the stress and all of the overwhelm that comes with being in debt. So I get it. So typically what happens when people come to me, I've been getting a lot of people responding and reaching out to me individually that sign up and are like, hey, I'm in debt. I got this much. I'm doing this and that. I'm overwhelmed. I'm stressed. I don't know what to do. So the first question I always ask, which is going to lead us into step 1, is do you have a monthly budget? Not really a monthly budget. Well, a monthly budget, but let's back up some, because I asked that question because I already know the answer most of the time when they come to me frantic. So I know the reason I ask that is because that way I know how to attack or what step we need to jump into as far as getting their debt paid off. So I asked if they have a monthly budget, and most of the time it's going to be no. So then I have to start with step 1. And step 1 is getting an inventory of your debt. So that just means any debt that you owe to anyone, I need you to get an inventory of it. So in most cases, I recommend someone, you get a free credit report. You can go to annualcreditreport.com or freecreditreport.com, Credit Karma, Credit Sesame, whatever. You can Google these sites. Most of these are free, where you can get a report. And what you want to do is you want to get a report and you want to get a list of each debt that you owe. And then once you get that, I tell everyone to get a list of each debt that they owe and the monthly payment that they owe, the minimum monthly payment, write that down, the interest rate that they're paying on it, and the principal balance that's left on it. And then that's step 1. Don't do anything else until you do this step. And I break it down step by step because the thing is, I want to get you out of overwhelm. So I tell people, don't write down the plan that you're doing. If minimum credit card payment is $25, but you're paying $150 each month. Don't put that down on the sheet. I want you to put that $25 minimum on the sheet, and then we'll go back in and attack it. And a lot of people are like, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. I'm like, no, just follow the steps exactly like I say, and then we will come back to, I'm telling you, we'll come back to it and we'll come up with a plan, but let's just do it this way first, because obviously what you've been doing hasn't been working. So let's stop that and let's come back and break it down to keep it simple, keep you from being overwhelmed. Just get every single debt. Just go get a credit report, get all your debts, list it out, list how much the principal amount is, what the monthly payment is, and the interest rate that you currently pay on it. So that's step 1. And then I take them through from step 1. Once we get all of that information, You got it. Got your inventory of your debt. It's all gathered. How much you owe each month? How much is due? Leave that there, and we're gonna move on to step 2. So step 2, I want to get a financial overview of your monthly expenses, not including your debt. These are going to include things like rent, groceries, health insurance, cable. Your living expenses basically is what we want to get an inventory of. So step 2 has 2 parts, and we'll get to the second part of that in a second. But do the same thing. So get a monthly payment of what you owe, and like some of the bills, like like your rent, your cable, bills like that, phone bill, those don't really fluctuate. Car insurance, those stay the same. But there are some bills that fluctuate. Like you may not know like how much you actually spend eating out or how much you actually spend on groceries. And that's totally fine if you've never done a budget before. It's okay not to know these things. So what I always do in this situation, if you don't know, the best way to do it is get a bank statement or a credit card statement, however you spend your money or wherever the money is coming from each month, whether it's coming from your bank, hopefully not credit cards, but I understand. I know some people are in a situation where they're doing that credit card loop and everything is going on there. Anyway, get your statement and then get an average of the last 3 months. I always say 3 months at minimum. I mean, if you want to do 6 months, that's totally fine, but usually 90 days, 3 months will give a good picture of kind of what you're spending and kind of like the average of what you spend in each category. The reason I say 3 months, because I know some months can be a little off or a little wacky if things coming up, and especially like if it's a holiday or you had a trip or something planned, then it can throw it off. So get a 3 month minimum. If you want to do 6, that's totally fine. Then from there, this is part 2 of step 2, or part B, whatever you want to call it. Get a list of any income you have coming in on a monthly basis. Whether that is your W-2 employee, whether you're a contractor 1099, or if you got side jobs or whatever, any type of income that comes in, any income source that comes in on a monthly budget, again, get that listed out. If you work in sales or, a job or where you work on commissions where the salary fluctuates, again, what I always suggest is get a 3-month average of your income, your monthly income. The same thing we did with the monthly bills. Just get a 3-month average of your income and then use that as your base for your income that comes in. Again, so there's 2 parts to step 2. So we want to get a list of all your monthly expenses. Again, so one thing to note though on the monthly expenses part, if you're pitting categories and you don't quite, if it's not like a housing or car payment or something that's the same, and you're doing the average, make sure you go a little heavy. I'd rather you go a little heavy on those categories as opposed to light in those categories, because we can always, pull stuff out or cut when we need to. But I want you to be as realistic as possible with those numbers. And if that means padding them a little bit, that's totally fine. We'll come back to that. And again, then the second part with part 2, part B, is get a list of all of your income that comes in on a monthly budget. So that's going to bring us to step 3. So at this point, step 1, step 2, A and 2B, we got a list of all your debts. We got a list of all your monthly income, and we got a list of all monthly payments that are coming out. So you should be able to have a full view of your financial picture. So what I want you to do in this category is I want you to look at, well, actually what I want you to do is I want you to just see where you're at. So this is a good time to, since you have everything listed there, your monthly bills, your income, see where you're at. So basically you just want to take the amount of money that's going out each month and subtract it by the amount of money coming in. And you want to see whether you're in the red or if you're in the black. If you're in the red, this next exercise is going to be very helpful for you to help get you in the black. If you're in the black, still bear with me. This is still going to be helpful for you as well to be able to figure out where money's going and how we can get more money to go towards your debt. So this next step is you're going to go through after you get a balance. Let's go through now and let's see where we can cut expenses. So step 3 is going to be, let's go through cut expenses, but also we're going to figure out where we can negotiate expenses. Like, this is huge for me. So, I mean, look at your cable bill, look at your insurance bill, look at your phone bill, look at those bills. I remember when I first did this, like I went through those bills. I called the companies, got the packages. If I didn't get rid of something, then I got a better deal, because most likely they run promotions all the time. There's probably a better deal out there, and they're not going to call, trust me, they're not going to call you and be like, hey, we got this better deal. Let's help save you money. So you have to call them to help save money. So when I did this, I saved between $200 to $300 a month just by calling those three to help negotiate it and get the balance down. You can also do the same thing with your credit card balances or credit card companies as well. Call them. Tell them you're trying to pay off debt. Tell them you're trying to get them paid off, and see if they can give you a lower interest rate. I know in some cases I've heard where they give you a lowest interest rate to be for a certain amount of period, and then you can take that time to be able to pay that off, or you're not paying as much, because I know the interest rate is high on those. Now, if you have student loans, you can try. They're not as lenient or not as forgiving. I haven't really seen them be really nice, because they're going to get their money regardless. But if you want to try, then go ahead and give it a try. So step 3 is pick up the phone and negotiate your current expenses. So now that brings us into step 4. And step 4 is we want to come up with a payoff plan to help tackle your debt. So after you've got that original amount of, the amount going out versus what's coming in. Now we've went through and we've cut expenses. So now let's go back in and let's see where we're at, where we balance out. Hopefully if you're in the red, we've got out of the red, we've got into the positive. And if you're in the positive, you've got more wiggle room to go. And then that's where you want to go through. Also, during this, I forgot to mention during the last step, also go through and you want to try to, cut out any, you see like you're spending expenses or whatever. If you're in the red, especially, you want to go through and cut back. You get a good picture of what you're spending, eating out. Go through and see what else you can cut from your budget to get it really tight, but make sure it's realistic, something that you can handle. That way we can at least get you to where we have some money left off and we got a little cushion to start paying off your debt. So now we want to come up with a payoff plan. So the payoff plan, you can start initiating immediately. So there's 2 ways. And what I always do is, before we're going to come up with a payoff plan, but what I like to do is, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you don't have any money saved up, and you don't have, an account with savings or anything at this point, go ahead and use whatever you have left over, and let's start building up an emergency fund. Like, there's recommendations to start out with $500 to $1,000. With that, I think that's a good number to go ahead and start building that up. At least have, $1,000 at minimum. If you have to have 500, depending on your financial situation. But if you have that money saved up, go ahead and get that saved up. What I always did is, depending on, like, this isn't a set amount, depends on what you're comfortable with. Some people want to have 3,000. Some people want to have at least 3 months saved up. So whatever that number is for you, your financial situation, your job situation, with what you're comfortable with, but make sure you have something there, because the last thing I want is for a hiccup or something to come up down the line that throws you off your plan. But make sure you have that in place, some type of nest egg or some type of savings, just in case something comes up. Okay, so step 4. So come up with a payoff plan. So once you get the emergency stuff paid off or saved up, let's come up with a payoff plan. And you want to just take basically what you have left over each month. After everything is covered, all your bills is paid, all the minimum bills are paid, you want to go through, and there's 2 methods you can do this. We want to attack the debt. So you can do a debt avalanche, and this is basically where you take the highest amount, highest interest, and you attack that first. I did kind of a hybrid. I started out this way because I know for me, like, if I can knock, I think my biggest one was like 26,000. It was a student loan, and I was like, I know if I can knock this one out, then I have no excuse whatsoever to not knock out any of the other ones. So I just tacked the big one first, because I was like, let me just get this thing out the way, prove to myself that I can get it done, and then I have no more excuses, no turning back after this point. So that's what I did. But the other method, which is like the most common method, is the debt snowball method, where you attack the smallest debt first. And I think this is cool, especially if you've never tried to pay off debt and you've been struggling and you're struggling to get momentum. This way is going to be a lot easier to get started. So start with that smallest one, knock it out, and then whatever debt you have after that, knock that out, and so on down the line. So whenever you knock out a debt, say you knock out, your smallest credit card, which is like a couple $100, and you're paying $25 minimum towards that debt. Knock that out. And then that 25 minimum, throw on to the next debt. Say it's a student loan and it's like $100 a month or whatever that you're paying towards it, 150. Pay that amount off, and then take that 150 plus the 25 with the credit card, apply it towards the next debt in line, and so on and so on and so on. This is cooler because this is a lot easier because you get a lot of motivation during the process, and you get some quick wins very early to help build momentum and to keep you going. So that's step 4. The next one is during this process is step 5. So make sure that when you're going through, and this is going to be why you're paying off your debt, to create some type of debt payoff, set a debt payoff date, and make it visual. So now that you understand like how much you can put towards your debt, you got your plan on how you're going to attack it, go through and try and set a date based on what you're going to be paying, get the numbers figured out. Again, this is going to be, at the end of this, I'm going to give you a link to go to where you can get a download to go through each of these steps and kind of see what I use as a visual representation as well. But get this out, have it visual so you're seeing it every day. I put this on the fridge because I have to eat, so I ate every day. But I saw where I was at, and I updated it every month. When I went and paid off a debt, like I showed the amount of debt I had paid off and the amount of time. I set the goal to pay it off, $70,000, $70,000+ in 12 months. So I knew each month I could see visually that I was ticking towards getting that debt paid off. And it was cool for me to update it. And my partner was cheering me on, hey, you didn't update it for this month. So I would update it, put it up there. So it was something for both of us to look forward to each month. So I'm telling you, it may sound cheesy, it may be like, I don't know how that's going to help me. Trust me, it's very motivating to have a visual reinforcement that you can see every single day that reminds you of how far you've come with paying off your debt journey. So I would recommend setting that up. So that brings us to step 6. So now that we're at step 6, this is the fun part. So you want to try to look for ways to increase your income. So several things that you can do for side hustles. I just happened to do what I was currently doing at my current job, and just took that outside and started doing technology consultant on the side, which ended up being my full-time job now, which is what I do full-time now. I was able to quit my job. But you can deliver pizzas, you can Uber. There's lots of things that you can do, or sites that you can go on to get additional income in. I've done videos and stuff on this as well. I'll link it up. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll link it up. And if you're listening to the podcast, I'll put it in the podcast description as well. Just a whole path of different things you can do to bring in additional income, which is very helpful. So this really helped me with helping to speed off my debt, and a big reason why I was able to actually reach my goals because I focused so much on increasing the income. I know a lot of focus sometimes is focused on, cutting out the debt or removing things, which is fine. And, it's good because you want to get on the budget. You want to see what you can remove first to get those quick wins. But the biggest impact you can have, and I can say this is the most important step, besides having that monthly budget to see where your money's going every month, is increasing your income. This is going to allow you to increase it the most. You can only cut so much, but the amount of income that you can bring in is there's no limit to the amount of income that you can bring in. Just a matter of how hard you're willing to work, how smart you are about it, and what you're willing to put in order to increase your income and get your debt paid off. And now, last but least, we're going to bring us to step 7. So step 7, this is when you get towards the end of paying off your debt. Once you get out of debt, break the debt cycle. When you're going through your debt, you pay a debt off, don't go back into debt or make it worse. It's okay to go and celebrate. And, if you want to do a nice dinner, once you reach a milestone and pay off a debt, but don't go do anything crazy and buy a $1,200 phone or a $3,000 computer or a nice purse or some expensive piece of jewelry or clothing. Don't go doing that to put yourself back in debt. You want to break that debt cycle again, but you want to make sure that you make it fun and that you put some things out to allow you to celebrate. But don't go doing anything that's going to make reverse or wipe away all of the hard work that you've put in, all the momentum that you've built up, and break that debt cycle, because that's the goal. That's the end goal, is to get out of debt. Again, these are some ways that I recommend to people to help get started, things that work for me personally when I paid off my debt or was going through my debt journey. Again, I'm not a big stickler saying, hey, there's one way that works. So take some things from here. Take what works for you, what fits your lifestyle, what makes you comfortable with paying off your debt. But the main goal here that we all have is to get out of debt. So as long as you're on course to do that, taking plans from me, taking plans from other people, meshing them together, or just following this exact plan that I have, make sure that you have a plan in place and that you stand on that plan and that you're reaching your goal of becoming debt free. Again, that is another episode. My name is Lewis Pike. I almost forgot. So in the description, in both the YouTube video and the podcast, I'm going to leave a link, or actually I can just tell you guys can go to 7stepjumpstart.com. That's going to take you to a download that I created for you guys, a PDF that's going to walk you through the exact playbook that I have here, that I mentioned on the call. You can download it. You guys will get it immediately. So make sure you go download it, check it out. If you guys enjoyed this video or this podcast, make sure you leave me a review. Again, I don't get any money or anything. I do this to give back. I want to share my debt journey, share with as many people as possible, help as many people as possible get out of debt using the things that I've learned and the experiences that I've built, and help people to live their best life. And if you haven't joined the Facebook group, go to Facebook, go to Living My Best Life, and join the Facebook group. I'm in there every so often, a lot more than I am here on YouTube. I'm in there interacting, talking to people. Go in there, introduce yourself, say a message. There's a pretty good group of several hundred people in there. We'll welcome you. Let's start the conversation. It's good accountability. Everyone, have a great day, and I will see you all on the next episode.